Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Mad Mouth, and we're going to get defensive tonight. We're going to be talking about the defensive aspects of the game. And Greg, before I go out there and do that, I want to go ahead and introduce my crew tonight. Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion. Welcome back, Rick.
Thanks, Scott.
And Eric Katz, Mr. Concrete Dump. Let everybody know what Concrete Dump stands for, because we want to make sure everybody knows.
It's Montreal's Olympic Stadium.
Attaboy. Welcome back, Eric.
Thank you.
And Greg Fuchs, the author of this whole production here tonight called Baseball is Gold. So, Greg, why don't you give everybody a little bit of an overview? But before you do that, just want to let everybody know that to find 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, you can do so by going to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that. And it can also be located on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts as well. So with that said, Greg, take it away. Give everybody an overview, and then we'll proceed accordingly.
Sure. I mean, one of the things I find different about baseball than other sports is defense stands out. I mean, I was watching ESPN's top 10 plays of the day the other day. I think 7 out of the 10 were defensive plays, okay? Nothing from basketball, not home runs and stuff like that. It was like 70% defensive plays. And when you think about it, how often do you see like a highlight of a great tackle in the NFL? Not too often. How often do you see a highlight of a steal in a basketball game? But you see highlights of great defensive plays all the time in baseball. So it got me thinking about, all right, who are the best defensive players at each position in the history of baseball? Now, one of the problems you have is back in the old days, pre-1940, even 1950, weren't any Gold Gloves awarded. Not a lot of video showing highlights of players back in the day. Plus, early baseball, the guys played with small gloves, which I just assumed led to fewer great plays because the glove was so small. So I pretty much focused on the era since 1957 when they started giving out the Gold Gloves. And I don't think anybody on my list played before 1950, okay? So when I think of defense, there are 2 players that stand out to me. In my mind, they're the 2 greatest defensive players ever to play the game, regardless of position. One is Ozzie Smith. He was, and let's talk about what makes a great defensive player. They make all the routine plays. Then they make difficult plays look routine, and then they just make spectacular plays that most other major league players can't make. And that defines Ozzie. Not only was he steady, he was also flashy. And, it's tough to explain it in words. I mean, you got to go to YouTube or something and pull up Ozzie Smith highlights to really appreciate him. And he's in the Hall of Fame, but he didn't get in there because of his offense. I think he was probably a 270-something career hitter, had some speed, no power, but he's there solely because of his defense, and it is well-deserved, okay? The other guy who stands out for me, and I'm wearing his hat, and that's Oriole third baseman Brooks Robinson. He won 16 Gold Gloves as a third baseman, which is far and away the most. And the one thing different about him and Ozzie was quick. He was athletic. You look at Brooks. Wasn't very muscular, was very slow of foot, didn't have a rocket arm, but yet somehow he fielded any ball that was near him, fielded balls that weren't even near him. And the diving plays he made to the left and right, and him coming in on bunts and just scooping them up and throwing in one motion, just stellar. And if you want to see the best of Brooks Robinson, go to YouTube, pull up the 1970 World Series against the Reds where he was the MVP. Had a great series offensively, but it was the glove that made the difference in that series. Those 2 guys are just icons defensively. And that they're the top 2. Who the third best all time is, I'm not sure. But on me and my little pyramid, they're 1 and 2 all time. Just huge fans of both of them.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down position by position here. And we're going to pretty much go by your guidelines. And then I'll add a couple of things along the way. Rick and Eric are here to comment as well. I know you talked about Ozzie Smith. You said he had 13 Gold Gloves. Others that you can call and put in the discussion are Mark Belanger and Omar Vizquel. I think a lot of people realize how good Mark Belanger was. And I'm going to also talk about third base, and I'm going to lead into a couple things, and you'll know where I'm going in a moment. You talk about Brooks Robinson, who had 16 Gold Gloves, Mike Schmidt had 10, and Nolan Arenado has 9. Now, here's a little sidebar to the Robinson situation. A guy by the name of Aurelio Rodriguez, okay, of the Tigers, broke Robinson's 16-year lock on the glove. When I believe he ended up winning it in 1976, excuse me, I got it here. And Aurelio Rodriguez, unfortunately, was killed in a tragic accident a few years back. But he played for the Tigers in 1971 to 1979. He's currently a member of the Mexican Baseball Hall of Fame. Let's stay with the shortstop position because
And on Aurelio Rodriguez, he may have had the best throwing arm I've ever seen on an infielder.
yeah, he did. The shortstop who was alongside of Rodriguez played for the Detroit Tigers by the name of Eddie Brinkman. And I'll tell you where we're going with this in a moment. Brinkman with the Tigers from 71 to 74, Gold Glove in 1972, and also made an All-Star appearance. Now, here's what's interesting about these two guys, okay? That on October 9th, 1970, the Detroit Tigers traded Denny McLain, Elliot Maddox, Norm McRae, Don Wirt to the Washington Senators for Joe Coleman, very serviceable pitcher for the Tigers. Had a chance to meet him in Jupiter a few years back. Eddie Brinkman, Jim Hannon, and Aurelio Rodriguez. At that time, McLain was suspended, but Bowie Kuhn let the trade go through anyways, and he called it a very foolish gamble, which turned out to be a Tiger heist. So if you want to talk about guys who are very underrated that I grew up with, I don't think there was a better tandem outside of the ones we're talking about, Belanger and Robinson, than you would have seen at that time between Brinkman and Rodriguez. Now we know the Tigers would end up having Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell as your shortstop second base combo later on. But man, when you talk about guys who strictly relied on defense and kept teams in it, especially up the middle, in my opinion, the word underrated to me is an understatement when it comes to Aurelio Rodriguez and Eddie Brinkman. And once again, I reiterate, it was Aurelio Rodriguez who snapped the dominance for Brooks Robinson. Pick it up from there, Greg. Just want to make sure we got that out there.
Yeah.
To me, these guys are just names you won't hear about any time because they just don't get the recognition. We all know that nowadays you got YouTube to go over, but we didn't have that before.
Right. Yeah, two other third basemen you hear a lot about. I think, are they brothers? You tell me. Cleat and Ken Boyer. Were they brothers? Both great fielders.
Don't know. Never paid attention to them.
All right. Let's talk about a couple positions which really don't get a lot of attention when it comes to fielding. One is obviously the pitching position. Not a lot of action on the mound. But if you're a bad fielding pitcher and you can't handle those comebackers, you can't field the bunts, it can just kill you. So I just went to, all right, who's won the most Gold Gloves? And I remember Jim Cotton's day with the Twins won a bunch, but Greg Maddux won 18 Gold Gloves. So he's getting my vote. All right. First base, another position is sort of taken for granted because a lot of times you get lumbering guys who can't really field that well. All they have to do is catch the ball. But, you know, if you have a bad fielding first baseman who can't dig the balls out of the dirt, can't move to his right, can't field bunts, I mean, it can absolutely kill you. And the best first baseman I ever saw was Keith Hernandez from the Cardinals and the Mets. He was just real smooth, and he won 11 Gold Gloves, most of any first baseman. Second base, key defensive position in baseball. Been a lot of great defensive second basemen. But I think Robbie Alomar, I mean, he just had the range, the arm, the athleticism, made a ton of spectacular plays. And he won 10 Gold Gloves. There's probably some other guys you consider there. You guys may talk about them later. The catching position is unique because there's no other position like it in baseball. I mean, first of all, you need to call all the pitches. You need to block balls in the dirt. You need to throw out runners trying to steal. You need to field bunts. You need to catch the ball from the outfielder, so some guy's barreling down upon you to score a run at the plate. Very unique position. Been a lot of great defensive catchers over the years. Ivan Rodriguez won 13 Gold Gloves. Yadi Molina still playing, has won 9. The guy in my mind, because I saw him a lot when he was playing, though, the guy I think is the best all time was Johnny Bench. Just had a great arm. blocked all the pitches. Just said, remember, people always talk about how soft his hands were. He would just cradle the ball when it went into the dirt. So Johnny Bench gets my vote for the best defensive catcher of all times. All right. That takes you to the outfielders. There have been a plethora of great outfielders. Most of them are center fielders. Your best defensive outfielder, for the most part, goes to center field. The guy who's the fastest, the guy who can field. And there has been a ton of great defensive center fielders. You can't just ignore the corner outfielders, because there have been a lot of excellent corner outfielders. Probably the one that stands out to me, and he's one of the three that I'd say is one of the top three all time for the outfielders, is Roberto Clemente. He just had the athleticism, the arm. He covered a lot of ground. So he gets my vote there over some guys like Al Kaline or Dwight Evans or Ichiro, who was probably the best defensive outfielder recently in baseball for the corner positions. Center field, got to go with Willie Mays for one of them. Won 12 Gold Gloves. Everyone remembers, because we see it a ton of times, that over-the-head catch he made against Vic Wertz in the World Series, like an iconic play. The other one is probably a little more controversial, and I admit I'm a little biased. But growing up as an Oriole fan, I saw Paul Blair play a lot. And he was noted for playing a shallow center field, so balls rarely dropped in front of him. And nothing was ever hit over his head that he did not catch. Another thing I remember about Blair, he rarely dove for a ball. He used to just catch everything in stride, just a tremendous defensive outfielder. And many times he scaled the center field wall, bringing back home runs. He didn't have quite the offensive reputation as some of the other Gold Glovers have, which I think helps. I think the better your hitter are, more likely you are to win a Gold Glove. But Blair still won 8, and to me, he was just outstanding. I mean, there's a bunch of other outfielders, especially in center field, who you could put on your list. But that's my 9. So have at it. Convince me otherwise.
All right, so let's go over each position in the order for which we're going to do. I know that, and I may repeat myself a little, but then I'll be able to defer to everybody here. I already got, you have to say, Greg, now I'm going to go to Rick. Can we talk about Ozzie Smith, Mark Belanger, Omar Vizquel? The other two are pretty much, to me, they're just excellent shortstops. I know that we're talking about Gold Gloves in terms of shortstops all the time. I can tell you right now, Cal Ripken Jr. would certainly waver in there, and Alan Trammell, but they don't have the Gold Glove hardware as well.
Ripken still holds the record for fewest errors in a season by a shortstop with 3.
Right,
and he didn't get the Gold Glove that year. It was Ozzie Guillen that got it, that had 17 errors.
Yeah, what makes this a very stimulating conversation, there you go, Rick, you talk about Ozzie again. We base the show on defense and Gold Gloves. We don't base them on the greatest at that position, because you're leaving a lot of offense. You got Alan Trammell can make a case with the shortstop position, Ozzie Guillen, as you just mentioned. But Rick, we'll stay on track and in order here. Do you agree with Greg's list with Smith, Belanger, or Vizquel?
I have, Ozzie Smith definitely is. To me, the greatest defensive shortstop ever. He was amazing what he did, and he started his career with the Padres all the way to the Cardinals. I mean, he used to do those backflips, and he's called the Wizard. There's a reason they call him the Wizard. So definitely, it's Ozzie Smith for shortstop.
Yeah, and he was traded for Gary Templeton. Eric?
Yeah. So in regards to all that, for shortstop, I definitely have Ozzie Smith. I mean, he's the Wizard. I mean, probably one of the greatest defensive shortstops of all time. I don't think we'll find another. But over at third base, definitely Brooks Robinson. You're called the human vacuum cleaner. I mean, how good does it get when every ball that's literally hitting your direction is going to be an out?
Yep.
Okay, and then your thoughts. Okay. Eric, on Mike Schmidt, who I think was probably more known for his power than his defense, although 10 gloves, Gold Gloves, nothing to be disappointed at. And Nolan Arenado, who's got 9 and counting. So we'll continue on. All right, let's go to first base. Okay, Keith Hernandez, 11. Of course, my buddy Don Mattingly's got 9. And George Scott doesn't really get a lot of attention because he played with the Milwaukee Brewers. So, Rick, we'll start with you. Let's take a look at what Greg has there, and where do you pair it? Is it in line?
Well, I love Keith Hernandez, but to me, it's Don Mattingly. I just thought he was one of the best defensive first baseman I saw. You know, even when he was hurt with the back problems and everything, he was still great. Just smart fielding, great arm, just very smart. You know, and I know unfortunately, I didn't see him in his prime when he hit, and he was a fantastic hitter. And it wasn't for the back problems, he'd be in the Hall of Fame, no doubt about that. But
He just made things look so easy in the
he
field.
was smooth. He was very,
Yep.
very smooth. And so, to me, the best I ever saw was Don Mattingly.
Eric?
I'd probably say over at first base, I have to go with Keith Hernandez, and here's why. I mean, as much as I love Donnie baseball, and I still think he should be in the Hall of Fame, the Mets defense ran through Keith Hernandez. They would reroute the throws because Keith Hernandez's arm was so accurate, and the guy won over 11 Gold Gloves, and he was basically the captain of that defense, especially with the 86 Mets. I mean, you know, Keith Hernandez is probably one of the best defensive first basemen of all time.
Well, I think what's interesting about Keith Hernandez, he could do it well offensively as well as defensively as well.
Oh,
but the guy that doesn't get a lot of credit is George Scott because he played for the Milwaukee Brewers. So, but you know, if I'm going to lean toward any of these three guys, I'm going Don Mattingly all the way. Well, no disrespect to Keith Hernandez. All right, let's go to second base. Okay, again, we talk about a position. We're talking mainly about defense only. Lou Whitaker, you know, obviously doesn't get the credit that he deserves. But he didn't win the Gold Gloves, which is part of what the whole theme of the show is tonight anyways. So we'll go over the list again. Roberto Alomar, Ryan Sandberg, Noah Mazeroski, and Frank White, who doesn't get a lot of credit because, you know, he played for the Kansas City Royals. So, Rick, again, Roberto Alomar.
Yeah, I have to put Alomar there as well. He was a great fielding second baseman, very smart, flashy, quick, you know, great, smart hitters in the Hall of Fame. And to me, it has to be Alomar. I mean, Sandberg's was up there as well. I mean, but I'm going to go with Alomar.
Eric?
Gotta go Robbie A. He's, you know, he was defined on what second base was supposed to be. Really changed it defensively. He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. And, you know, Roberto Alomar is just, you know, he just was unbelievable with the glove. So, like, you know, there's a lot of good defensive second baseman out there, but really, I think Roberto Alomar is the only great one you can really truly say was truly great at that position.
Yeah, I know a lot of our audience, too, probably hasn't seen Bill Mazeroski anyways. And unfortunately, Frank White, you know, not a lot of people paid much attention. Those are the Kansas City Royals, small market teams. Although he obviously played a big role in their success in the 70s and 80s as well. So, but yeah, I guess there's no questioning Roberto Alomar. As we move on, catcher Rick, Ivan Rodriguez, no doubt, man. The 13 Gold Gloves. I was actually at the Marlins game when he was behind the plate when they had that big collision where he made that put out that sent the Marlins. They ended up winning the World Series against the Giants. All right, Rick, we're going to keep going back and forth to you and Eric, piggyback. Ivan Rodriguez.
I have Johnny Bench. I think he's. I agree with Greg. He was just not only a great hitter but great defensive third catcher. And to me, I think one of the most a person we're leaving off as well is Tony Pena. Tony Pena was fantastic. Great arm. I remember when he used to sit. I was like, I never saw a catcher sit like that, and he would actually throw from his butt and take people out. You know, so that to me, he was to me the most underrated catchers, but I'm gonna go with Johnny Bench.
Eric?
I gotta go Johnny Bench. Really defined the catching position for his time. You know, nobody did it better. Nobody did it better than he did. You know, he's a Hall of Famer, very deserving of it. Because catcher that was a hard one too, because there's a lot of great defensive catchers out there who truly were great behind the plate. You know, obviously an honorable mention I put in there is Yadier Molina. The guy's gonna be a Hall of Famer. You know, it's like when people are you just didn't steal on Yadier Molina. It was hard because of that gun of an arm that he'd get it over to second base instantly, and the runner would still be standing up when the ball got over there. You know, it's just, you know, catcher, that one was hard, but I'd probably say I have to give it to Johnny Bench.
All right, well, you know what? I'm going back home to Detroit again. Johnny Bench, first of all, is the guy who I would choose. No offense to Rodriguez and Molina, but the guy I grew up with in Detroit was Bill Freehan, and I wore his number 11 in Little League. And I can tell you, and he won, and actually, I believe he won a 1976 Gold Glove. Everybody knows that Bill Freehan caught Mickey Lolich, in the 1968 World Series. Went on to have a pretty good coaching career at the University of Michigan for the Wolverines. But I wore his number 11 proudly. I played the position for 3 years. Some of my favorite interviews with MLB, minor league ball, or whatever you want to call it, all of them, is as a catcher. Because you got to remember what they do is more than just field their position. They're calling, they have to obviously call a game. I can tell you how many times I got nailed for catcher's interference, and how many times I used to get in the batter's ear and distract them and then get on the umpire. I even pulled a trick one time where if the umpire didn't give me what I want, I got out of the way and he got hit with the ball. I didn't care. And I would take mound visits like you wouldn't believe. Any psychology that I could have done as a young 80-pound scrawny kid that played little league ball, I didn't care. I knew all the tricks in the world. So, yeah, I definitely have to go with bench, but I would put honorable mention, maybe call it the local Detroit bias. But Bill Freehan is a guy I grew up with. And you know what? To me, he was one of the most underrated catchers out there. And again, one of those guys, maybe some Detroit guys don't get respect for the Hall of Fame. Mickey Lolich and Bill Freehan are two of them. But Bill Freehan gets honorable mention. Johnny Bench gets
I have
not.
another one, Bob Boone, to me.
Yeah, he's another one.
The guy was a master at framing pitches. He was fantastic. And so he has to get an honorable mention. I think Bob Boone and Tony Pena, to me, are two of the most underrated catchers in history.
I used to love framing pitches. That was a beautiful thing.
I love that old mask. He had that old catcher's mask too.
Oh, I didn't care. I framed pitches.
Loved it.
I can tell you how many times I got hit on the wrist and how many foul balls I got dinged with. No, it has nothing to do with the concussion issues half these days, but I get the drill, man. I really do. All right, so let's go on to the outfielders. We'll go with the corner outfielders. Too many outfielders to mention, but Greg had a pretty good list. And we'll talk about, I think you started with the corner ones. You have Roberto Clemente and Carl Yastrzemski. And then other ones worth talking about are Ichiro Suzuki, Al Kaline, and Dwight Evans. All right, back to you, Rick. Let's talk about some corner ones.
Yeah, that's a big Clemente. I agree. He was the best. I mean, it's just unfortunate he died in a plane crash, and coincidentally enough, he had his last hit was 3,000. But he was. People talk about what a great hitter he was, and he was. But he was also a great outfielder as well defensively. So you can't go wrong with Clemente.
And you get another one. You get two of them.
Oh, and Willie Mays.
Now corner.
Oh,
he was a corner outfielder. Willie was center field.
That's right. Well, I like, as Greg said, Paul Blair, to me, is underrated.
He's another, I believe he's another center fielder. Let's make sure that you're in the right place.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I had one corner and two center fielders on my list, but you can go different. You can go.
Well, that's fine. So.
Well, who did you have for your corner?
His corner, I'll go over it again.
Okay.
You got Clemente, Yastrzemski, Ichiro, Al Kaline, Dwight Evans. Not bad. They're all pretty good. Again, we're basing everything on Gold Gloves. We're not talking about just
Well, Ichiro is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the best that I ever saw. Not only to me, the best modern day hitter in my era, but also a great outfielder, great arm, a heck of a pitcher. Saw him throw out the first pitch at a game. So you can't go wrong with Ichiro. And can you imagine if he started his career in Major League Baseball and not in Japan? He would have like 4,000 hits in Major League Baseball. So amazing guy.
Makes you kind of wonder. I actually wonder when he actually gets inducted one day, whether they'll count some of his hits and mention him on his plaque about what he did in Japan as well as what he did. I think it would be incredible. I do think he got 3,000 hits in MLB.
He got 3,000 hits, and he actually holds the record for most, altogether in Japan and Major League Baseball. So, but they're not going to count that. But it's amazing. He got 3,000 hits, and he didn't even start his career in Major League Baseball, which is amazing. So, imagine if he started his career, that he would have been phenomenal.
I wouldn't be surprised though if they mention it on his plaque that what he did do, since it is baseball history. All right, Eric, give us your crack of the corner.
Crack of the corner. Well, to start, I have to go with Roberto Clemente. I mean, nobody. He was more before, he was really getting going. Because remember, he was playing at Ford Field in the beginning of his career, which is a hitter's graveyard. The guy played the wall. The guy had an arm like a rifle. I mean, nobody tagged up on him because he was going to get you. That's just how strong of an arm he was. and he knew how to play the bounces off the wall at Forbes Field and then the next ballpark, which escapes me at the moment.
That's okay. All right.
But-
So now we go to as far as my corner, I'll stick with Clemente, but I'm going with K-Line. And the reason why I'm going with K-Line, not only because of the Detroit thing, but the guy has a statue over at Comerica Park going over the right field wall. I mean, when a guy has a statue catching a foul fly ball, that to me says a lot. And the 10 Gold Gloves don't hurt. I could see where people would make a case for Yastrzemski, Dwight Evans, very underrated defensive player, and Ichiro, but I guess I'm going to lean toward Clemente and Al Kaline. All right. And the final position, then we'll get to the pitchers.
Scott.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Scott, I didn't do my other corner.
Okay.
My other corner, I have to go with Ichiro. I mean, the amount of when Dave Niehaus, who was broadcasting the Mariners at the time, right up until he died, I can't count the amount of times where he was screaming, saying, "Ichiro, you are amazing," with the amount of like unreal defensive plays he would have. I mean, no doubt he would be the all-time hits king had he started Major League Baseball.
Oh, wow. Well, he had more gold. I mean, you want to make a case for Ichiro with anything, his numbers would be much higher, whether it be Gold Glove count, hits if he started earlier. So you guys are way on target with that for sure. So yeah, I mean, again, but that's what makes it such a nice topic here, is everybody can incorporate their background, a little bit about what they've done. I tell you, if you would have told me before I started this broadcast, I would be mentioning Eddie Brinkman, Aurelio Rodriguez on a show, let alone the fact that the Tigers hosed the Washington Senators and that Denny McClain trade where he even net Joe Coleman. I thought it was nuts, but the reality is, Greg does a good job bringing Mark Belanger into the equation. Nobody really thinks about him at all. These are just guys. That's why it's neat to bring these guys up to complement the greats, because, again, the emphasis is who did well on the defense. And let's not kid yourself. The old analogy in sports is defense wins championships. Well, baseball, it does, but you need pitching and you need Super Bowl offense.
Another honorable mention should be Jose Canseco.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah,
I would consider that a sarcastic.
I mean, get a ball hit on top of the head for a home run. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was waiting for a Rick Curti.
You should have won a Gold Glove for that.
If you put Jose Canseco in there, I'm going to say Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm saying
one comment about Belanger. I think he played 17 years for the Orioles, and to prove how good a defensive player he was one of the worst offensive players in the history of the game. But he was out there every single day, every year, because of how good he was defensively.
Well, there are teams out there that go out there and overlook the offense if you feel that the defense saves you runs. I mean,
Luis Aparicio is another one.
Right.
Not a great hitter at all, but a great defensive player.
Hey, they're out there. Let me tell you one thing, okay? You got 9 hitting positions. If you have a liability with 1 or 2 guys offensively, hey, if you can't hit, at least you get him to bunt anyways. And I wasn't considered a very good offensive player when I was playing Little League. But I can tell you one thing, when I was playing Little League, I took every foul ball where the sun doesn't shine, and I used the master manipulating tactics that you had to do what I've got to do. I just mentioned them. So, let's face the reality, especially catchers, some teams will overlook offense just to make sure you call a good game. I mean, think about Vance Wilson, who got a contract from Jim Leland. Wasn't very great offensively, but he got a couple more years out of it. So the list goes on and on. All right, let's go on to center fielders. I know Greg's list included Willie Mays and Ken Griffey. All right, Rick, back to you.
Willie Mays. I mean, no doubt about it. Not only was he a phenomenal hitter, but he was also a great defensive player. Who can forget that over-the-shoulder catch? Amazing guy. Probably another honorable mention up there that I saw in my time, shows you at my age, Jim Edmonds. He was fantastic. I mean, that guy was amazing. I didn't think I'd ever see a great cast of one that Edmonds did at the old Kauffman Stadium against the Royals. That's still, to me, the best amazing play I've ever saw in baseball. And I've seen a lot of amazing plays. So, to me, he gets an honorable mention, but it's Willie Mays.
Well, you get 2 of them. So you got Willie Mays. He talked about Ken Griffey. No, you're not getting 3, but yeah, now that I brought honorable mentions and you sneak one as you always do anyways, doesn't matter. But yeah, no, that's okay. I'm with you. I'm glad that you bring him out there. Some people might look you up and say, hey, you know what? Edmonds is a heck of a player. So you're going with Mays and who else?
At Mays and Edmonds.
Okay, fair enough. Eric?
I got to go with Willie Mays, and just the over-the-shoulder catch off of Vic Wertz in the 54 World Series. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And also getting people forget that he got the double play on that play as well, where he threw it in so hard he fell over. And then probably say, again, my time, best defensive center fielder of my time has to be Jim Edmonds. I mean, the emperor of center field. I mean, he made some unreal catches, not only with the Cardinals, but also when he early in his career with the California Angels. Who could forget when he flopped like a fish catching that one line drive? I forget who hits it, but you can't go wrong with the emperor of center field. Also, I want to sneak one in for a corner outfield spot, and he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, go ahead.
Carl Furillo, the emperor of the outfield when he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers.
All right, well, don't expect me to hashtag that one, but at least you get the honorable mention anyways. All right, let me go.
I think Eric's really 87 instead of 27.
Yeah, I know he comes across. I'll tell you what, man. There used to be a guy on this show that talked about analytics to a point where he overdid it. Yeah, 1/10 of the knowledge Mr. Katz has, so more power to you. All right, let me go.
I read Boys. It's good because I knew of the Brooklyn Dodgers not just because of Jackie Robinson, Pee Wee Reeves, but also it helped reading the book Boys of the Summer.
Well, it doesn't matter. You do your homework. That's all that matters on this show. You do your homework and you look good. Then we're thrilled with that. So I'm going to go center fielders, and I'm going to stick an honorable mention that a lot of Motown fans will like. I have to go Willie Mays, and you know what? I'm going Ken Griffey because Ken Griffey did everything right. Yeah. He did. Yeah, he played the game clean. Okay,
Junior,
and he went after every single ball, diving into walls or whatnot. And if Bryce Harper wasn't so reckless, I would almost put him into discussion for A for effort. But the guy I'm going to bring up right now played a big role in the 1968 World Series when they needed him. Al Kaline was out for a period of time, and they moved Mickey Stanley to shortstop to get rid of the bat that they have. I believe it was Don Wirt ended up sitting out. Mickey Stanley gets moved over to shortstop. Al Kaline is in the outfield. But there you go. But again, though, all speaking aside, I got to go Mays, and you got to go Ken Griffey. Ken Griffey Jr. did it right offensively, and he went after balls that most people wouldn't even have the guts to dive into. I love Ken Griffey anyways.
Me too.
He's a guy that I think should have gotten 100% of the vote and didn't. But,
his only downfall is he crashed into the wall so many times he was on the disabled list a lot.
Well, I know that. I get that. But you know what?
He still caught him, though.
I know how often he was on the DL. He played for Cincinnati, played for Seattle. But you know what? Doesn't matter to me. His effort, his power prowess, and his defense to me. These are, Greg, for a change, I'm agreeing you with that too. So take it for whatever it's worth. Okay.
I have no problem. If you want Griffey on there, I got no problem.
Greg,
I know, but I'm agreeing with you.
Greg, I played outfield because of Ken Griffey Jr.
What's that?
I played outfield when I played baseball because of Ken Griffey Jr.
Well, yeah, it's funny, when you talk about little leaguers, they play certain positions for players that they respect, idolize, and fan. And I enjoyed the way Bill Freehand did things, and I enjoyed the way he called games. I did the same thing. So we all emulated somebody.
Denny McLain's 31 wins. Freehand was behind the plate for that.
I know. Yeah, I remember. And I remember, but the one thing I have in my office at home is the photo of Mickey Lolich and Bill Freehand. And I had the good fortune of doing a broadcast with Mickey Lolich and spent time with his house in southwestern Florida. Okay. All right, well, we're going to get to the pitchers and we're going to call it a night. Okay, obviously, Greg, you gave yours. So, all right, Rick, you got you know who the Gold Glover is. Just give me one pitcher that, aside from Greg Maddux, that you would put on your list. We're going to give you one.
It's besides Greg Maddux?
Yeah, because
Jim Cott.
Yeah.
Jim Cott. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize how great of a pitcher he was. I think he's barely going to the Hall of Fame. He should have been there a long, long time ago. Yeah. I just remember him as an announcer. And, as I started getting more into baseball, I was like, wow, he was a fantastic pitcher that you don't hear much about. He's very, very underrated. And I know Maddox broke his record, most Gold Gloves, but he had it for a long time. So it has to be Jim Cott.
Eric?
You're going to be surprised this one, but besides Maddox, obviously the greatest defensive pitcher of all time, I got to go Mike Mussina.
You know, I read him on that list too. All right, go ahead. Explain why you're going with Mike Mussina.
I mean, everybody knows the guy was an absolute strikeout machine, but the guy could field the position. Like the amount of comebackers he took, the amount of line drives hit right at him that he caught. The guy, I mean, you know, he gets a little overshadowed just because he played the same era as Greg Maddux, just because it was just unfortunate timing there where he was just happened to be playing around the same time. But he was a great defensive pitcher, and he won Gold Gloves the same time Maddux did. And Maddux was in the National League while Mussina was pitching for the Orioles and the Yankees in the American League. It's too bad he couldn't win a ring with the Yankees.
All right, and I'll go to my list. You know what? I'm with you, Rick, all the way. I mean, I realize Greg Maddux has the most Gold Gloves, but I like Jim Cott. I think the only thing I like about Jim Cott was not only did he play field his position well, he didn't take forever to deliver the ball. I mean, you want to talk about a guy who would be pace of the game. Rob Manfred would be doing cartwheels over his delivery. He'd get the ball, go back, fire it. You would, if you had a pitch clock to define what Jim Cott was, I think he got rid of the ball in about 10 to 12 seconds by the time he got on there. He didn't get the hitter an opportunity to go out there and do his business, whether it's the gloves or whatever you want to call it, to get these guys mentally ready. And few people realize, though, that Bob Gibson had 9 Gold Gloves as well. So not only was he a great strikeout pitcher and a great pitcher, but having 9 Gold Gloves isn't so bad for Bob Gibson as well. Now, I know that Greg had a list talking about it. I'm not giving a list about positions. I don't care. I think my list was suited enough to let people draw their own conclusions. But I will go over Greg's list again. So, Greg, go over your list you had one more time, and then we'll have some closing thoughts.
Sure. At first base, I had Hernandez. Second base, Alomar. Shortstop, Ozzie Smith. Third base, Brooks. Catcher, I had Johnny Bench. Pitcher was Maddox. In the outfield, I had Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente, and the underrated Paul Blair.
Okay, well, that's good. And you know what? I don't need a list. I think just by listing the players that I did is good enough. And I would rather let everybody draw their own conclusions. Rick, do you have anything that you want to that comes close to resembling? Greg, you're just going to let your name stand out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Mattingly, Alomar, Ozzie Smith, Brooks Robinson, Jim Cott, Johnny Bench, and for my outfield, Clemente, Mays, and Ichiro.
What about you, Eric?
For catcher, I got to go Bench. First baseman, I got to go Hernandez. Second base, Alomar. Third base, I got to go Brooks. Shortstop, I forget what I put. Sorry, guys. Ozzie Smith. Outfield, I got to go Ichiro. And I also have to go Roberto Clemente. Center field, I got to go with Mays. And pitcher, I got to go with Maddox. But besides Maddox, I'd go Mussina.
All right, well, then, you know what? I'll provide a list just to add completeness to the whole thing. Shortstop, even though I did mention Eddie Brinkman, who doesn't get any notice, you have to go with Smith. It's the obvious no-brainer of the group. And I'll go with Brooks Robinson. How do you dispute 16 Gold Gloves? But I'm glad we got a plug-in for Aurelio Rodriguez. No, I'm going Don Mattingly. I don't care. I mean, Don Mattingly, had his career been a little bit longer, I think the Gold Glove total comes closer to Hernandez. Second base, it's hard to argue Roberto Alomar. Catcher, I'm going Johnny Bench. The outfielders, when you talk about corner, I'm going Roberto Clemente and Al Kaline. Center fielders, you're looking at Willie Mays, Ken Griffey Jr. And as far as the pitcher, you know what? I'm going to go Jim Cott. But I like the fact that Eric brought up Mike Mussina because he doesn't get the publicity and respect that he does. So
he just happened to play at the same time Maddox did.
Right. Yeah, he did. And
he was a good pitcher.
But again, the one thing I enjoy when we talk about doing these list type things is our goal is to make sure the audience has an opportunity to think, listen to the show over, and then come up and draw their own conclusions. And that's why I enjoy doing these a lot. So tonight we talked a lot of different players, and obviously my Detroit mindset incorporated in some old-time Tigers that a lot of Tiger fans could probably relate to. So, but meanwhile, it's really been a lot of fun. I enjoy going back to the history. And one thing, as I mentioned at the top of the show here, as we get a chance to talk about baseball in a different way from a defensive standpoint. Everybody talks about offense. And in this particular case, it's really good. And just so you know, folks, this show is titled Baseball is Golden. Greg Fuchs wrote a story on it. I thought it was good enough. I thought I wanted to take that story and turn it into words, and not only turn it into words so you could see all of us comment on it as well. Kudos to you, Greg. It was a really dynamite story, and I'm glad we have an opportunity to utilize the show. This is 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. Please be joined by Rick Curti, Eric Katz, Greg Fuchs. So, that to me puts a wrap on it. Rick, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
You can find me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. My email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. I'm also on there, Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram at Charlotte Bats, Twitter, Charlotte Bats Baseball. And if you go on our website, you go on sign our petition to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte.
Greg.
Yeah, first of all, Scott, I want to congratulate you on mentioning every player who ever played for the Detroit Tigers.
No problem. Hey, you know what, Greg? Once upon a time, the Tigers and the Orioles had quite a rivalry. I remember guys like Mike Cuellar, Dave McNally, and we talked about Jim Palmer. I mean,
Surprised you didn't mention Trammell and Whitaker. That would have been on that list. Would have been amazing.
I did earlier, the double play combination, but not in this context. But no, I'll take any congratulations I can from a fellow Baltimore Oriole, because once the time you were lucky enough that they played at Fort Lauderdale Stadium and you didn't have to go as far as you have to take the drive.
Yeah, I remember those days.
And I actually covered the Orioles a little bit during spring training back then. So, but no, I'll take any congratulations you can, Greg. Thank you very much. Okay.
All right. And you can find me on my writings on SouthFloridaTribune.com, and on Twitter, it's GFuchs at Gregory Fuchs.
All right, Eric. We'll save the Wisconsin man for last. Before you go, get around to it. Eric Katz, obviously, is one of the co-hosts on Fire Up Wisconsin. So we're glad to have him on that, as well as 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, with a periodic appearance on the Sports Exchange. All right, Eric.
Yeah, you can find me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, and I also cover Wisconsin football for BellyUpSports.com.
All right, last but not least, me, the guy that Greg congratulated. Okay, Greg, thanks. He's doing that because he wants more airtime anyways. That's okay. The best way to get more airtime is be nice to the boss. That's okay, Greg. Your writing is still awesome, and that's and I enjoy reading every article that you send via email. Good stuff, Greg. So with that said,
thank you.
You can reach us at www.southfloridatribune.com. You can go ahead and email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com, Twitter at Tribune South. Feel free to look at the broadcast via the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. Please subscribe, spread the word. We work very hard to give you the best possible content that we can. And the way you get to see all of us is, once again, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. No charge to do it. Just a little tap of the finger, hit subscribe, and it is all done. And last but not least, how you're going to find out about these shows here when you're in your vehicle, whether you're at the bus, train, whatever. Well, that's easy. Go to Spreaker.com. You can also find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So meanwhile, guys, a really great show tonight. Baseball is golden, and this show is golden in its own right. We get to go out there and talk about baseball in a way that it should be talked about defensively, because, as I alluded to moments ago, we can talk about all the offensive things that go with it, but there's nothing like that great defensive play that saves the team from a walk-off, or for that matter, what about those no-hitters? How many great defensive gems lead to the completion of no-hitters? So
perfect games.
Dwayne
Wise.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, that's what, once again, that's what makes these defensive specialists what they are. And as we once mentioned beforehand, it's just amazing how many guys are kept on an MLB roster because they are strictly there for their defense only. So with that said, on behalf of the crew, thank you very much for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. God bless until the next time. Bye-bye now.
Good night. Go Celtics.
Good night.